All right, started. Let's see what happens on YouTube Live. Refresh that bad boy. Let's see what happens. Oh, I better mute it as well. Otherwise, weird shit goes on. There we go.
That's actually this month's as well, so that's a good
yeah.
improvement.
YouTube doesn't hate us this month.
It will next.
It will next. Yeah, something's going to change. No, of that there is no doubt. So is that everything running? Recording? Are we recording? Yes, we are. Let's check the level. Hello, hello. That's good enough for me. Say something, America.
Something American. This is very American.
Say
this
something.
Is an American thing.
Say something.
It's American
Sheffield.
on the 4th of July.
Say something random.
Chickens are quite fluffy when you actually get to know them.
That is quite random, and it is random. Okay, well,
I wonder what the chicken has to say about that. I just sent you what the chicken has to say about that.
Well, let's have a look what you said.
Is it bukkake? Oh, I sent it in.
I could believe that. Of some chickens.
That's the kind of chicken I can get behind.
Oh, that reminds me. I need to. Have you seen that thing where people hold up a big blanket in front of their dog, and then they like show them like do a peekaboo, and then they go back up, and then they kind of drop the blanket and fuck off,
and
then
gone,
the dogs are all like, "Whoa!" Dude.
Yeah, dogs, cats. I've seen that. Yeah.
There was one this morning with a cockatiel. I forgot to show Amber it, but he does it, and the cockatiel just stands there, sort of rocking backwards and forwards, going, "What the fuck? What the fuck?"
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Oh, good.
So this is live news for August. Welcome everybody. I don't know if we'll get any live listeners. We didn't announce this. It's going to be people dropping in, dropping out as we go. So kind of tough to schedule this one for one reason and another. And let's see if I made any notes. Yes, I did make some notes. So this month, been having some email issues earlier in the month, caused by spammers trying to register on the forums with fake emails, and then the forum tries to email them back, you know, a registration link and all of that. Of course, it dies, and that counts against us. You know, you get deferred emails, and you're only allowed so many every hour. Otherwise, the server thinks you're sending spam out, and it stops your emails from working for the hour. So I cleaned out all the forums. I thought I'd done a query that would do it, and it did, but it did also delete a couple of legitimate users, one of which was Willie Culver, and the other was...
And Willie is nothing if not legit.
No. So I recreated Willie's account, and the other was forum member I4000, who was... maybe he might not want his name read out, I don't know. But we've met him in CG, I think it was 2012, Scott, the Irish fella.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was him.
2010 it was.
Oh, you might be right there. 2010, yes. So, yeah. Deleted his as well. There may be others who haven't tried to visit again since, but I do apologise for that.
Basically, if it's deleted, we're really sorry.
Yeah, and let me know and I'll recreate it for you. Soz. And that is pretty much my gaming month. It's been a busy month in other ways, but not too much gaming-wise, although Scott mentioned the Pi Top last month, and I had... Retro Pi set up just on a standalone Pi and what have you. So I just shoved that into the Pi Top, fired it up there, plugged in the USB receivers for my wireless pads. Had to modify the case a little bit with a file because they wouldn't quite fit in the opening, and got all that working. So other than that, nothing too much gaming-wise for me.
Well, I... been up to some stuff, I guess. Retro wise, I did a super short notice. Man, I sit here, listen to everything you're saying, everything's fine. I go to talk, and all of a sudden, it's like my sinuses attack me, and start choking on just nothing but air. So fuck this. All right, so I had a very short notice arcade party. Good friend of mine is moving back to France. He's lived here the last 2.5 years, and the project's kind of done. It's time for him to go. And he's a gamer like myself. And on a Wednesday, we were having a discussion, and it was like, yeah, let's go out, let's do something with a couple other people. And it became, well, hey, let's just go over to Scott's. Hey, let's go do this. Let's do an arcade party. So in about 2 days of notice, I put together an arcade party. So not a lot of time to do the typical invites. So I'll get another one done here soon. But great night, and played a lot of games. Only one thing broke, and something always breaks when you do an arcade party. One of my Tron boards just wouldn't power up because, well, it was arcade party night, so there was that. But a lot of beer, a lot of shenanigans, and a good time was had by all. So that was that. I have been playing a little bit more on my PS4 God of War. You know what? It's kind of interesting. The characters are all, a little bit different than your standard takes. The dwarves are very different. The elves are different. It's just kind of a unique game. It definitely has its own twists on the character types. It's got everything you'd expect from a mythological fantasy story, but yet not done in the typical semi worn out way. So that was good. I did pick up one of the new Nintendo Minis. Haven't had a chance to even look to see if it can be modded yet. Don't really much care. It's mainly just for the shelf because I've got the modified Famicom that works wonders. So love it. Yeah, other than that, not a lot. Just the God of War thing. So I'm starting to anticipate a couple games, though. I'll say this. I am looking forward to a new Fallout. I really, really want to get back into that. I really like what they did with the world. Fallout 4 was just a fantastic game. And I'm kind of hoping for a new Titanfall. I'd like to see one of those come out as well. So looking for some new stuff, anticipating new releases. So that's about it for me.
Probably a bit overdue another Titanfall at this point. When was that? Was that 2 years ago, Titanfall 2?
About that.
Yeah. So
is anybody working on it?
Seems like a reasonable gap. Well, it's Respawn, and they're not doing anything else these days that we know of, I don't think. So I don't see why they wouldn't be doing it, but yeah, who knows? I mean, they didn't monetize it very heavily, which it was at a point just before EA went too far down the monetization rabbit hole and fucked themselves. So I don't know whether that maybe stopped anyone wanting to really bankroll a third one quite yet or what, but yeah, I'm sure it will happen. In terms of what I've been doing the last month, fuck knows. I've been very busy. I've mostly playing gaming-wise, just been playing Yakuza 5, which is kind of sort of retro-themed in a loose way that it's, the spiritual successor to Shenmue, which has just had its remakes come out. Not too interested in going back to Shenmue, though, after I watched a playthrough of Shenmue 1 about 12 months ago and kind of got from that, watching that playthrough, everything that I needed to remember about it without having to maybe deal with some of the timekeeping aspects of it. And then I only played Shenmue 2 probably, well, actually no, it's probably quite a while now because it was in my old house, but it feels like it wasn't that long ago still. And yeah, really enjoyed that at the time and don't feel like I need to go back and revisit it quite yet, but then also maybe a bit scared to go back and revisit them because I don't think, certainly to me, they hold up as well as they perhaps used used to feel like they did. Well, it was certainly revolutionary at the time, I guess. But then, yeah, because everything's built on their formula and, expanded it, and, the open world genre has become just massively complex. I mean, like, just going back to Yakuza 5, that's been absolutely fucking bonkers deep. And I never felt like I was like grinding or things were just like being boring. I was doing boring, repetitive tasks or anything like that. And I seem to have still put now about 65 hours into it, which is nuts. Because I think the very first one I did, which was very much a tighter, streamlined package and was more like a crime drama in how the story was built up, and you had very sort of distinct, maybe 45 minute to an hour long chapters, and it would kind of pull you along, and you'd sort of go, right, I know I can sit down and play one of these in bed before I get to sleep. It's only going to take me an hour, but then you kind of maybe get through it and be like, well, maybe just I want to see what's going to happen. It's only going to be another 45 minutes, an hour. And it just sort of drag you along like that. But the whole thing I'm sure it only took me about sort of 12 to 15 hours, that first one. And now there's just so much stuff to do in them. And it's all so varied and bonkers. And it's just gone into this whole mental thing. So I'm glad that, I don't know how much really of the sort of Shenmue process sort of influenced it, but it definitely has that kind of feel and that kind of world going on, but in a more modern way. So that's been occupying a lot more of my gaming time than I expected. Not massively upset about that fact really though. Like I say, I've been enjoying it and not feeling bored at all, so that's all good. And apart from that, I suppose just been mountain biking and pissing about, getting ready to spend a large amount of next month in Scotland again. Well, actually, only a week in Scotland and a week in Cumbria beforehand. But yeah, that should be nice. Do a bit of naturism and then a bit of filming. Maybe a bit of naturism and filming.
I did add a second microphone to the studio on a boom. You can just about see it in the shot there. Some 3D printed stuff. Holding the microphone together. Should there be a second person in the studio at any point. And like this one, it just swings out the way when I'm not using it. So I did that.
Swings both ways by the looks of it.
It does. Both of them swing both
it's
ways.
that kind of microphone.
Mic that swings both ways.
Yes. Yeah, we know a few of them. So, we can jump into some news then. Sparklepuss may be along at some point. He's working right now. Depending when we get finished and how quickly he drives home, he may join us. Random Dave is going to drop out at some point, and Scott will drop out at some point. So, we'll jump into it and see what we get through. So, the one I sent in here was from one we've used a few times, Digitizer. Has some good stuff on there, has some not so good stuff on there. And this is 10 jaw-dropping classic arcade cabinets. And we've talked about some of these on the show. Thunderblade, of course, the helicopter sit-down cockpit with the controls. And TX1, not one I've heard of, a 3-screen racer. Space Harrier, not a favourite game of mine, but decent-looking cab, sit-down cab with the flight control yoke in front of you. Fire Truck, of course, we've mentioned that on the show. That's a great game to play 2 players. Time Traveller, we've, of course, mentioned. Afterburner, another one with the cab that swings all over the place as you fly around the sky. Hang On. The motorbike that you sit on, of course. Discs of Tron. Kind of I guess you call it.
That's another one on my hit list is Hang On.
Yeah. Have you got a motorbike game? I don't think you have you?
Nope, that's why it's on my hit list. I want, it's got a pretty good looking sport bike chassis. You sit on the bike and ride it around. It's great. So I've saved a special spot down next to the Ferrari simulator for that.
Discs of Tron, the environmental cab. Ridge Racer, this is the full-scale one. We do have a few of these in this country. and people tend to track them on various forums. I'm not sure where they are at the moment, but this is literally a car sat in front of a huge, I guess it's projection screen, and you're literally sat in a physical car while you play it. R360 isn't one I've heard of. Or is this the system?
Yeah, R360. You must have heard of that. That's the ridiculous one. So what was it? What was the game?
I think R360 is the actual cab technology, if you like, and they used it for games I have played: G-Lock, Galaxy Force, Power Drift.
I didn't know you did a Power Drift version on R360.
No.
Yeah, it was Galaxy Force I was thinking of, and G-Lock as well. But yeah, it was the one where it went, full 360, and there was cordons around it, and then isn't there some fable about one of the guys when they were making it got locked inside it overnight or something.
Oh God!
I can't imagine how. I mean, that would be.
The sides are open.
Yeah.
Or does it close completely when you're in it? Maybe it looks like the door's open actually, and it closes.
If he got locked in, he wasn't very clever.
No. And the final one on the list.
Served him right.
Maybe it was the custodian.
Final one on the list is Galaxian 3, which is a big room that you walk into.
So I got one here. I pay a little bit of attention, and as you read down the list, because I'm kind of picking them at random. Not random. I'm kind of picking specific ones I want to cover. So there may be a few in the middle that I've already hit. Got one here from Chris Leithco, and it says, car maker Tesla considering adding Atari games to your car. So it's a little article in Car and Driver, and Elon Musk sent out a couple of tweets and intoned that in Tesla software version 9, there'll be some Atari games as Easter eggs. So I guess the idea being if the car is not in motion, you'll be able to play something like he hopes to include Pole Position, Tempest, and Missile Command. So certainly using the resolvers on the steering wheel and the other controls, you could definitely play Tempest by spinning the wheel around, all that. My sincere hope is that this does not turn into something that can be done on the road, because as it is, I already am at the limit of losing my shit over cell phones, and I can only imagine, video games playable on the dash of these cars. Two things I did want to comment on. I've gotten to the point when I'm on the bike, I can look down into people's cars pretty good when you're on a bike. So if I'm on my bike, as I approach cars, I'll go to the extreme left or right, and if they're like the lead car, if I look down and I see they're on the fucking phone, as soon as the light changes, I'm literally 3, 2, go, and I just go right the fuck around them. And it is hysterical. The look on their face, because you can see them in the mirror. When they look up from their phone, bewildered and angry because somebody just blew around them while they're texting, But they are completely indignant. They are beyond mad that you did that to them. So this whole texting shit's getting out of control.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to comment on real quick, since the word Tesla came up, if you're bored and you have an interest in cars, or bottom line accessibility of technology, what's called the right to repair. There's a lot of assertions lately by companies that, you bought this, but you didn't buy the software. It's only licensed to you, so you might own that Apple iPhone, but we want to crawl up your butt because you own one. The software is still ours. There's a huge thing going on right now with the whole right to repair movement, where, manufacturers, and Tesla is amongst the most vicious about it, want to lock you out of working on your vehicle. They, want vehicles to be maintained only by them for the fees they dictate, whether or not you have the tools and or ability to do it. So they have gotten pretty hostile towards owner repairs. There's a couple guys out there that have been, rebuilding wrecked Teslas and all, where Tesla says, this car is unrepairable, it'll cost $30,000. And then the car goes to auction, so people will buy the damaged Teslas, and they'll, take, say the body work from one, the electronics from the other. And Tesla does their absolute damn best to keep you from getting that done. They lock you out of the software to, integrate the components that you've replaced. They just do anything they can to keep you from doing that. And if you end up on their shit list, basically if they figure out that you're working on your own car, or that you're, using repair parts or whatnot, they disable the rapid charging in your car so that you can't charge your car other than with the slowest, I think, level 1 charging or something like that. Anyway, this certainly is something that's topical to us in the gaming hobby, as, there have been multiple attempts to sort of lock down the platform and keep you from snooping around and or changing or doing things. So I just thought this was a neat marriage of those two topics. So there's a lot of good things on YouTube if you want to, watch a couple of the guys that repair the Teslas and their challenges and dealing with that. There's one guy called Rich Rebuilds. Cannot recommend his channel enough. Great, funny guy. And he does this bit, where he calls Tesla on the phone and says, "Hi, my door handle broke, and I need to know, do you have one of those? And what do you sell those for?" And the lady's like, "Okay, sir, I just need your VIN." He's like, "For a door handle?" Okay. He gives her the VIN, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, sir. We aren't able to support that vehicle." He's like, "You won't sell me a door handle for my car?" "No, sir, not at this time. We can't do that. You would have to have the car recertified." Recertified, what's that? And he knows what it is. And the lady's like, "Yes, sir. You have to bring it to a Tesla certified dealer. That they go through it and recertify the car into the system. There's a fee for that, and they go through it. So it ends up, it's literally going to be like $10,000 for them to recertify the car so that they will sell him a door handle. It's amazing what they're up to. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that with our audience because it's definitely something that's kind of up their alley.
Few people sent the Atari games in Tesla one. Chris Lethgo was one, of course. Peter Gibbs, Sean Stevenson, and our very own Random Dave.
Did I?
You did.
I don't remember that. Blimey. I didn't even manage to see it either in the list of news. That was good. Speaking of Chris Lethco, got one here from him about a user on Reddit that had found a big box full of PS2 and PSP beta discs and UMDs, and is going to be in the process of dumping them all to an ISO backup. Just in his email, he's listed a couple of the games being Ridge Racer English, Metal Gear Acid, Dragon Ball Tenkaichi Team Tag Team, and Blaze Blue. There's a GBA temp thread that he links to with lots more information and discussion on it. And it'd be for me personally, I think it would be kind of interesting to see a lot of these ISOs hit the gaming download sites. Bit of interesting stuff. I mean, they're not going to be amazing. Some of these beta versions, they might be sort of
broken
vertical slices if you're lucky. That are to show, trying to show to Sony, why, or other publishers, why they should get paid and continue to release it or whatnot. Some of them might be, yes, quite buggy and quite broken. A lot of debug stuff in there. But this is kind of around the era of where I started in the industry and came across quite a bit of PS2 and PSP random stuff as I sort of landed that had never seen the light of day and never has seen the light of day. Don't know whether I still have any of it, unfortunately. Maybe actually on one of my old PSPs might have some stuff knocking around, but I doubt it, which is a bit of a shame because a lot of this stuff will just get lost to the midst of times, and as we know, so always good to see.
Yeah, we've got a comment on our live stream, and it was from last month, I think. Tim Hathaway, who says he's been a listener since 2011. And he's glad that we stream it live so we can watch it. So there you go. At least someone's enjoying it. Don't know about anyone today, having not announced it, but we may pick up some along the way. I think it tweets it and all that good stuff when we go live. There's a series of animated GIFs coming up, which are gender reveal GIFs. Having been to a couple of gender reveal parties myself.
Whoa! Hold on. We have to explore this moment here, Michael.
I think you're misunderstanding gender reveal. This is when people are having a baby and they reveal what gender it is to everyone, not when somebody changes gender. And so they'll do something like, it started off popping balloons and blue or pink shit comes out of it. The one that's on at the moment is someone slam dunking a ball into a net that's rigged, and it shoves pink powder everywhere. So,
well, in today's world, you can never be too careful with terms like gender reveal party.
No, yeah. One type of gender reveal party I would go to, one I wouldn't. The one that's up at the moment, Scott, you might appreciate.
I mean, how do you pick, right?
Yeah.
So I can't have one of them next time we're in Blackpool?
No. Is he
trying to refresh this here real quick?
Is he going to pull the trigger?
It's just going to involve me running around the hotel naked.
Again.
Oh.
Is he going to pull the trigger? Is the GIF working? I don't believe it's...
The slideshow's working.
The slideshow is. The GIF isn't... doesn't appear to be working. Let's try another. There is a good redneck.
Oh, is that where it comes back and knocks his headphones off?
No, it's a target out in the distance that explodes in blue or pink when he hits it, but it's not actually showing that bit in the GIF. Let's change it. There's this video out there where a guy is firing a rifle and the bullet hits, comes back, and literally knocks the headphones, the hearing protection, right off his head. Yeah, I've seen that one.
I've never had anything like that remotely happen to me, and I'd like to keep it that way. So, got one here from Retro Sean, and he says this is a seriously cool project that I hope goes to full production. And it is. Somebody out there is building an Amiga 4000 motherboard. Looks like quite the project. So there's two pictures of it. And I want to blow this up here. It's pretty much made using, this is a homebrew product. I mean, somebody sat there and, drew up the PCBs and, it's all homebrew. And this is the kind of stuff you can do now. The PCB design software that's out there is just incredible now. It uses, pretty much all SMT chips. There are quite a few of the original chips used. It does use legacy RAM. It has all the Zorro slots, to do the expansions with original hardware. And I don't see any implementation of modern storage. Like I don't see any. I do see IDE headers next to the and floppy headers next to the power supply input. I don't see like SD or compact flash or anything. That's kind of curious. I guess he's going for full old school. It's got the 2 Kickstart ROMs installed on it. But for now, it is not available for production. It's just somebody's personal project that they've been kind of showing off. And yeah, I mean, it's not radically overclocked. It's not anything new. It's just pretty much a new production Amiga 4000T board. So that's about it. Kind of cool, but I don't know. My enthusiasm for any of these new hardware Amigas is kind of tamped down a bit. With the new Pi Amiga, it is just brilliant. I mean, you boot up, you pick the Amiga version, anything from a bone stock 500 to a totally tricked out 4000. I mean, unless I want to do something specific, like run Video Toaster, then in this case, the emulation is just fantastic and works great for me. So, yeah, neat project, but I don't know what I'd use it for.
Here's one which is from Racket Boy, the rarest and most valuable PC engine / TurboGrafx games. Magical Chase is on there. Dynastic Hero. Super Air Zonk. There's a few instances of Bonk games. Bonk 3, Bonk's Big Adventure. Chase HQ. Camp California, by name and by nature. Another Bonk's Big Adventure. I guess that's the Super CD version. Might and Magic 3. Soldier Blade. These are the valuable Japanese ones. Darius, which I could have kind of guessed at. Darius Games always seems to be pretty well sought after. What else is down there? Well, you can have a look at the list yourself rather than have me read it to you.
There's a number of games there that were, when I started getting into PC Engine quite heavily, were all kind of things that I was like, yeah, I'd really like to play these. Oh, hang on. Yeah, these are all really expensive. Yeah, perhaps not. Yeah, kind of put a dampener on it somewhat, especially as, then prices started going upwards, trending upwards in all retro stuff. I sort of
also makes a compelling argument for, multi-cart.
Well, yeah. I very rapidly stopped adding to my PC Engine collection after I'd picked up a few cheap, good games, and then that was about as far as that went, unfortunately. Maybe one day it will go back down again and I can start again. But yeah, I would like to say multi-card, the way forward, really. I've taken one from Carl Klitsky, which is this is something that we've seen before. People in Minecraft making logic-based things. Like the most recent one, I think, was someone had recreated Pokemon Red, I think it was, in Minecraft, or at least an emulator that would run it. And I've dabbled myself while I've been tasked with daily testing of Little Big Planets, design systems. I used to make, as well as elaborate spunking penis machines, I'd now and again make like arithmetic logic units.
There's another show title for the sheet.
Spunking penis machines.
Elaborate spunking penis machines. It was easy to make basic ones, and there were even like test levels that were quite amusing, and with just like as you're trying to like make jumps, you just hit with a barrage of fluid from a phallic cannon, but then as you sort of got more and more into it, you try and one up each other and just make them the most elaborate, and can I make this have veins that throb and all sorts of things, and balls that react semi-realistically and things. But anyway, back to arithmetic logic units and 1-bit adders and multiplication systems and things like that. And this is something that I've not really even fathomed that could be a possibility, but with the open source version of the Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 engine, as it seems that a lot of limitations have been taken off what you can build, and someone has made a calculator out of roller coasters. And I've not watched the video yet, and it's not entirely clear from the story of how the inner workings of it work, but I guess it will be based on, there'll be junctions, and the coaster will split off at a junction, to represent going into like either staying on a 0 bit or going into a 1 bit, and then it'll all branch off and get more and more complicated, and where it all ends up at the end gives you a binary number that will be the product of all the inputs that you've given it. So yeah, if you're into that kind of thing, if you're a bit nerdy, that could be well worth looking at. And being on the open source engine, you can piss about with it yourself. Although, yes, it only took him approximately 35 hours to create the finished product. So that's certainly 35 hours well spent.
Yeah.
Or perhaps not.
So there's a redneck gender reveal for you, Scott, on the GIF.
What? Making my way to the other screen. Damn. Whatever happened to just saying we're going to have a boy, we're going to have a girl?
Yeah. Do they really think that their family and friends are really that bothered that,
I think if somebody I know was having a kid and pulled something at this level, first of all, I'm not going to show up. And if I was somehow at present what happened, I'd be like, yeah, just let me know when it arrives. It is just dumb.
Something that may not be so dumb is, on Pinball News, an announcement about another remake. Chicago Gaming confirmed what has been widely expected, that they would be releasing a third remake following on from Medieval Madness and Attack from Mars, and that will be Monster Bash, which is a game I like. I do like playing that every so often. The different...
Oh, it's great. That's a beautiful pin, too.
Yeah, the different monsters, obviously, on there, and all the different games and things you got to do under each one. What do you think about the remakes? Would you pick one up, or would you just get the original? Because, I mean, something like this is probably the only way a lot of people would get their hands on something like Medieval Madness.
Honestly, I mean, I would have to take a good look at both, right? Like, let's say, for example, I take a look at, let's say I want to get Medieval Madness, right? I know what they go for. I know what the good solid keepers are selling for. And if I took a look, I wouldn't order one of the repros on faith, right? Because you don't know, okay, am I going to get something with like cheesy stick-on decals and just blurry artwork, and is it just a crap thing, or is it to the standard of the original, maybe even better? So that's the kind of thing I'd have to see in person before I even consider doing. If the new production machine was as good as the original, I'd absolutely buy new production, because one, I'm there for the gameplay. I don't really give a crap if it was built in that particular year. It's kind of like, like the AC Cobra, right? You build a new Cobra, kit car. It's identical to the original, but it's not a real one. It's not from 1960, whatever. Okay, I don't care. It's a brand new Cobra. Who wouldn't want this done? I get that the value would be different. I'm okay with that. I want the experience, right? So when it comes to these new production pinballs, yeah, I would absolutely love to have, let's say I found that the quality was the same. It would be great, man, because I'm telling you, the home use only machines I bought have been essentially trouble free, because they're in a home use environment. Nothing gets corroded. The contacts don't burn out. They don't wear. You just have a brand new machine. You start with fewer problems, and it's just going to be something that's going to, not that I can't fix them, but why fix them when you don't have to? So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Sent in to us by me and by James Turk. So thank you, James, for that. One here from Peter Gibbs, who says, this seems like one of the articles you'll get from many sources, but here goes. Actually, I don't think it was. Some relatively, in brackets, authentic-looking arcade cabinets set to be in big box stores. They appear to have made a reasonable effort at keeping the controls and artwork representative of the originals. I'm not sure about their comments on some of the art being particularly hard to find. There is a collecting community out there. I'm also not sure about the 3/4 scale, but they seem a nice piece for the casual hobbyist. And they are brought to us by Arcade 1-Up. And as Peter said, they're 3/4 real size. The 5 they're showing here are Asteroids, which also seems to have, I can't read that with my eyes, Lunar Lander, Tempest, and... I can't make out the other one.
I've seen these ads going around for a little while now, and I don't know. I mean, it's nothing I need. It's nothing I really want. They're big enough that they would actually take up enough space that would impact real games. It's not like these little keychain minis you can line up on the fireplace or someplace.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a bar top either that you could. Conveniently put like on the top of a counter somewhere or on a shelf. It's this kind of like awkward size that's not full size comfortable, but not small enough to not take up a significant amount of space, which seems a bit weird. Yeah,
it's still a big commitment of space in someone's house, I guess. So the list of launch games there's a list here rather than me trying to read the artwork. Asteroids with Major Havoc, Lunar Lander and Tempest. Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition with Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo and Super Street Fighter 2 The New Challengers. Rampage with Gauntlet, Joust and Defender. Centipede with Missile Command, Crystal Castles and Millipede, and Final Fight with Ghosts and Goblins, 1944 and Strider. Yeah, I think the best one of the bunch is the Centipede one.
The thing is, if you went out and got, like, let's say you got 4 or 5 of these, right? They're going to take up some space. I could put real ones. They're just big enough to take up a lot of space, and it's going to be LCD screens and okay versions. So, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Anything that gets people into arcade collecting that maybe buying one of these sparks them to go, you know what? I really like the real deal. And it's a neat thing. The more gaming products, the better. I'm glad they're out there. I'd kind of like to see one. I'd kind of like to play one. But I just don't know that I would have any use for one in my actual collection. Kind of weird.
Yeah, you could have 4 of these or 3 real ones in the same space.
Yeah. not getting it. Got one here from Sean Stevenson. 25 of the most powerful video game weapons. And Sean says here, though I can't say I'm familiar with the majority. This is a Screen Rant thing, so it's pretty much one of those clickbaits where there's a whole separate page of ads and stuff that has to load around each single image. So I won't go through them all, but number 25 here is the Red Shell in Mario Kart. Let's see here. The Spy's Butterfly Knife in Team Fortress 2. The Smart Pistol in Titanfall. That is a cool pistol. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of neat.
That's the one that it's got the homing bullets, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Excavator in Dead Rising. The Wabbajack in Elder Scrolls. And let's go for one more here. The Golden Gun in GoldenEye 007.
I have got one here that I sent in, which is a tweet from Gordon Williams, known as at Esperino. It was showcasing some code by what appears to be someone called Paul Cockrell, which is a Mario clock that the guys made and released on GitHub. And it runs on the Esperino boards, which seem to be about 20 quid. And this one's using a Nokia screen, which I think they work out to be sort of £3 to £5. But it does say on here it works with any display combo. So I presume that means displays that are compatible with the Esperino board. You've got a nice little clock it's kind of a Mario Land background that's going on with the sort of triangle hills and a couple of pipes. The Mario sprite's a bit of a weird one. It's kind of got a head that's almost twice as big as his body. Doesn't seem to be just straight ripped from any of the games. But then, yeah, it's got a clock and he does jumps when it changes, like the minutes change, he'll do a jump and things. And it's got sound capability. Looks like he's got some buttons wired up, presumably to sort of do the settings. So if you want to make yourself a little Mario desk clock at all, I'm sure Michael will have the link in the show notes. Get yourself over and give yourself a little hardware project and dive into the code behind it, and maybe you can tweak it to do what you look a bit different, how you might like it. It's kind of cool. Reminds me of back in the day where you had Game & Watch and you had Mario alarm clocks, and sort of a blending of the two. Pretty cool.
I'm even showing the video in the live news feed.
Ah, yeah.
I am. I'm not anymore. I'm about to turn it off. But I was.
That is pretty cool. I like the screens, nice and visible. You could use any damn screen you want with that too. So you could go much bigger, but that's pretty cool. That's something you could easily fit into an actual desktop, build.
Oh yeah, you could. I mean, obviously it's shown on a prototyping board, but you could easily make that into into a decent form factor that would be a nice little desk clock or a little bedside table clock, you know.
So I got another one here from Mike James, and it says pinballs to replace slot machines in Italy. Well, we'll see. So according to the article here, the Italian government has introduced legislation designed to crack down on the amount of gambling and gaming-related advertising in the country, with Deputy Prime Minister vowing to replace slot machines with pinballs. The proposed, and this is always the thing, proposed. I love how they always write the headline, Italy to replace slot machines with, pinball. Okay. The proposed new laws are blah, 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 blah. And then it goes on to tell you how it'll probably never pass. Yeah, the whole gambling thing. I mean, you know, it is in most of Europe and in the, UK. There's just sort of casual access to gambling. You know, there's certainly in Germany, the little, halls where you can do that. Every little pub in the UK certainly has something like that. The little casual, a couple of pence machines. That's they're not going to take that out of Italy. Those machines are all over Italy, just like they're all over, Germany or England. I don't see them going anywhere. I see this new series of laws just kind of not doing it. But hey, if it works out somehow and they put in pinball, what are we going to do? Force the bars to say, okay, you can no longer have these 6 games here, these gambling games. You must buy pinballs. No, they're going to find something else. I don't see it. The whole thing seems silly. But if by some chance they end up putting more pinball in the public, fine.
Speaking of pinball, as we were, Peter Gibbs sends one in, as did I. Pinball Hall of Fame on the move. He says, this sounds like good news. When I visited Vegas from Australia, I made the bus ride over to the old location. It would be great to see the full collection and have it a bit easier to get to. And indeed it should be, because it's moving right onto the strip. And the link will be in the show notes, of course, and it's moving near to one of the Las Vegas signs, the Welcome to Vegas signs, of which there are several. It will be located at 4915 South Las Vegas Boulevard. And the location currently doesn't have a building on it, but I assume it will before they move the pins there. So it's on the move and it's going to the strip, which is good news.
Shall we address the dog turd in the room and talk
He's
about...
not here. We fired him years ago. But
in the spirit of SoCal Mike, perhaps we've got a lot of Vega Plus stuff that has been sent in because they have been making their way out into the wild. And so there's a review from Stephen Studdard that was sent in. That's not just the usual ones that are from other sources. And so he's actually given us a little personal review. And he says, "Hi, Roundup team. Finally, after 2 years, my ZX Vega arrived. The shenanigans involved almost, but not quite, rivaled the Coleco you-know-what. I received the blankety-blank version to make sure I at least got something for my hard-earned £100. Not sure if I could risk awaiting the final version with the 1,000 games. If there's a final version, if it would have 1,000 games on it, if it did come out. As we well know, lots of shenanigans has gone on with that company and licensing, assuming licensing of games that from creators and such forth. So his basic review follows. Packaging. Well, retro computers call it ethical packaging. I would call it a plain black cardboard box with a bit of A4 crepe paper glued in with the machine rolled up in it. Machine bounced its way around the box within the paper, and as you know, paper can scratch a screen, and it did. No instructions either. Must be that ethical stance. Look and feel. Looks like the Vega Plus in the advertising, though badly finished with paper under the scratched perspex used as the bezel with the Sinclair logo on it. Now, if anyone's actually seen pictures of this, Jesus Christ, that screen bezel, like plastic. and you can clearly see that it's almost like, someone's just laser printed. I think like when you get those make your own coaster kits, and they're just a piece of plastic, sort of, that you can print a square and then slide it in and sort of put it together, and it doesn't really look great, no matter what. And it kind of has that feel to it. So we'll carry on. Buttons require a lot of pressure to register and no chance of doing any diagonal in any way of the Exploding Fist or any other games, as they are far apart and they are separate. Pretty unplayable. Menu works well enough, though does crash sometimes when jumping between options for loading and saving. I think it's a reskinned, and then there seems to not be the rest of that sentence, unfortunately. But yeah, I think it's probably meant to say it's going to be a reskinned open source front end for the emulator, I would imagine. Screen slightly better as a crisp display until you decide to drop the brightness. Then it flickers horribly, or this is a feature, i.e. scanline effect. This to me sounds like, it's just they've used a cheap, because sort of with LEDs, the one way to sort of dim them is you end up with basically a pulse modulation where you flicker it quite rapidly or not so rapidly, and that essentially makes it brighter or darker, which we've come across with some of the cheaper Chinese studio lights for video stuff that we've been doing in films, where you sort of go, well, I don't want this at full power, so I'll drop it down, and then suddenly it just sort of hooks in with the refresh, the shutter speed of the camera that you're using, and all hell goes loose. Whereas there is nice ways to actually do a big LED array, and dim it with, but it's just, it's going to cost you 5 cents more on the electronics behind it, rather than, just sort of chucking out a half a cent piece that just flickers nastily. So that's probably what's happening there with the backlight, no doubt. Sound, large speaker which somehow manages to be tinny with distorted sound. Either the amp is not up to it or the emulation is off, as it's running off the ARM chip. 3 buttons on the bottom right of the unit don't appear to do anything. I would guess when I work out how to get a few.
I know what struck me is fun. Of all this shit show of scratched perspex and this and the other, the way he just casually slides in and 3 buttons appear to do nothing.
3 buttons, which, if I'm thinking rightly, I'm not looking at a picture now, but they're the ones with the rainbow stripes on them and things. To sort of fit in with that. But yeah, they know they're not labelled. I've not seen them labelled or anything, and the 4 face buttons are 1, 2, ZX or something, aren't they? And I had no idea what these. I just assumed one would be like a menu, one might be a pause. But he says, I would guess when I work out how to get a few more ROMs in the 10 public domain titles included onto the unit, they may be for jumping a page at a time or back a page, which seems still a bit pointless when you could, you can have a D-pad, lots, and there's clones and stuff. You press up and down to scroll 1 at a time, and you press left and right to scroll 10 at a time. So why would you need 2 or 3 extra buttons for this? Who knows? Overall, for a 2-year wait, I got something, though not a great machine. Positives will be that I don't think there will be a lot of these in the wild, so the retro resale value should recompense me for the long delay, as units are up on eBay at 250 quid. Jesus. Wow. I assume these would just be like, the Neo Geo Gold, which, did actually was a more successful mass-produced product, but it was expensive when it came out, and then everyone sort of dogged on it a bit, said the screen's a bit shit, emulation's a bit shit, blah, 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 and then they did seem to drop. At a time, you could pick them up very cheap. I assumed there'd be a few people that would want them just for the curiosity value of having one, but generally, I wouldn't have thought they'd command a particularly high price. Whether that will stabilise in a few years' time, or even months, we shall see.
I remember a certain SoCal Mike was reselling those Neo Geos, and he ended up having to replace a load and send more out because the screens were dying and all sorts.
That doesn't surprise me, yeah.
Didn't they stiff them on that too? Like they didn't As I recall, there's
lost
something like
money
where the
on it.
manufacturer wasn't replacing it; they were making the vendors do it.
Yeah, I think so.
That's a great way to
there
lose
was-
all your vendors, even your crooked ones.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there was a whole thing, wasn't there? Because Tommy, who were the manufacturers, they lost the license, or some shit went down with the license very shortly after they released it, so they weren't allowed to manufacture it anymore, and so they probably just didn't have any more stock, to replace it with. So they're just kind of like, well, I don't know. Fucking, you just have to refund your customers. Nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to make and distribute these anymore. Tough shit. I mean, that was a whole fucking mess of its own. Not as bad as some of the messes have been of late, I think. But yeah, I mean, there's never really, if you look back at it, there's been the whole sort of, the Retron's got all the stolen emulator source stuff shadowing it, and the, like say, the Neo Geo that had various weird licensing problems, and it seems to be a tricky thing for everyone to get nailed down and get right.
And this
which
one
never seemed to be a problem when people were churning out plug and play, machines here, there, and everywhere, in every sort of Walmart and Target and Argos and whatever over here. They seem to be doing all right. I don't know why anyone it seems like everyone sort of went from them, sort of tried to overextend into, well, maybe if we could put more than 1 to 4 games on this thing and do something with it and sell it for like more money. But yeah, never really got the formula nailed, apart from maybe Nintendo, who, not surprisingly, went a bit more legit about it. Although they're not squeaky clean, because there was the whole Wii Virtual Console ROMs that had headers that shown that they were dumped from, they were downloaded from the internet from dumps that people had done. And rather than them, Nintendo being able to source their own ROMs, they've just gone, well, fuck it, we'll just download
them. Sean sent an update to the Vega one, and it is being stripped of the Sinclair brand. An article on the BBC, and the owners of the brand, Sky, decided there was enough shenanigans and withdrew the officialness of it. So it was just one huge fuck up, really, pretty much.
Well, yeah, that prototype that who was it that had that prototype in Blackpool 2 years? Was it 2 years ago?
Oh yeah. I forget who it was now. I remember looking at it though. That looked better than the shit that they've sent out.
That looked like a decently built machine. That they put some money into that into that prototype version, and then what they've come out with now. But then it's not surprising when there's the whole company's just hates each other, has fractured. Fuck knows where all the money's gone, and so they're trying to scrabble around and create something out of what money they've got left. It's going to be on a sub Hyperkin level of product quality and sort of expense on plastic. It's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, another bit of a shame for anyone who used it. I can't imagine it being that many, but Gamefly have ended their cloud gaming service. It worked on LG and Samsung smart TVs, and they billed it as kind of a Netflix for video games. The service is coming to an end. You should have seen a notice on your TV already telling you it's coming to an end. And it is indeed. I can't imagine it being all that popular, being such a limited audience, but you never know.
Well, I think you're right. Probably nobody.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
If Sony have kind of limping along with the PlayStation streaming one, I can't see that. Yeah, Gamefly are particularly going to have, because I don't get the feeling that their rent. I don't know why they still seem to do physical rentals sometimes. I don't know how well. I can't. You don't really hear either way, I suppose, but I can't imagine it. There's going to be a certain sort of core group of people that will be doing that to get cheap, cheap constant, every year I can just get the new Madden through it and get this, and just get a constant stream of games to chip through at a reasonable price, I suppose. But yeah, I can't imagine them doing their own streaming thing with everything that goes into that, with data centers and back end, and then with controllers for TVs being what they are. Even if you've got USB and Bluetooth stuff, it still never seems to be quite ideal. Yeah, seems. I don't think many are like the Nvidia streaming service. I don't know how that doesn't seem to. You never seem to hear them trumpeting, "Oh, this is going amazingly. This whole game grid thing, everyone's, it's going really well," and it's just kind of like ticks along in the background. Maybe they're just sort of hoping that one day it'll pick up and blow up, but no, I don't think it will.
No. Something you may hear more of in the future is Fortnite, which is coming to Android, but it's not going on the Google Play Store. The Google Play Store lets Android users buy and download apps, blah, 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 blah. But Epic Games' chief exec, Tim Sweeney, said the studio has not yet announced when it'll arrive on Android, but it's going to be free to play, as it is already. But they are not going to put it through the Google Play Store. I wonder how Google feel about that.
Well, Google probably feel we'd have quite liked 30% of all the shit that you sell through it to go in our pocket, and Epic are obviously going, well, we don't want to give you 30% of it, and we probably don't need to either. This is actually out now, isn't it? So they did a deal with Samsung.
I imagine Google kind of took the approach that Dolph Lundgren took in Rocky. I will break you.
Well, I mean, this is exactly what Amazon did. They created their own app store. Didn't know that you can't get their app store on the Google Play Store, but you can just get it from Amazon's webpage, and it just has their own app store and bypasses Google Play. And a lot of it's the same software. It's just they don't have to pay Google any cut of it. So it's not surprising. And yeah, like Fortnite, they did a deal with Samsung, so I think it comes shipped on the Note 9 by default. It's already packaged on there, and you get probably like 500 V-Bucks, I think, or something with it. But then, yeah, I think they're starting to roll it out to more and more devices. But then it's an odd one, because then you've had people that are obviously going, well, they've theoretically taken the Samsung ROM, and then they've done a bit of cracking to it, maybe if needed, and so then it's universal and people can sideload it onto their own thing. But then, how many of those are actually not at all? Just how many kids are just going to download any old shit, install it on an Android phone or tablet, and actually be doing all sorts of fuck knows what, crypto mining, just general sending $1 here and there to random people? It's going to cause a bit of a fucking fuck up, I think, in a few months' time.
A bit of a fucking fuck up, you think?
A bit of a fucking fuck up.
Bit of a fucking fuck up.
Or a cock up, as the kids say.
Yeah.
Mm.
Got one here. Let's see, where was it?
On your computer.
Oh, it certainly is. I have so many tabs open, I lost it for a moment. Okay, this one's pretty cool. I actually, I don't know when I'd ever be in Seattle, but if I ever found myself in Seattle, this would be a must-do destination. It's from Sean Stevenson, and it's called Computers That Changed the World. Nice little article on the Smithsonian site about vintage computers and the Living Computers Museum in Seattle, set up by Paul Allen, former muckety-muck at Microsoft. So, article opens up here. Lath Carlson may have the best job in the world. He oversees the world's largest working collection of vintage computers in his role of executive director at the Living Computer Museum and Labs, a Seattle public museum created in 2006 by Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen. Allen had noticed that many of the computers he grew up were fast disappearing, only to provide a repository that recognized the efforts of these creative engineers and made some of the early breakthroughs in interactive computing that changed the world. He wrote for the museum's public introduction. I couldn't agree more. there are so many computers that, because I'm a collector, because I do these things, I see these things. But when I talk to people, and the subject of classic gaming comes up, I'm like, hey, you ever seen a Coleco Adam? You ever used a C64 or whatever? Many of them remember them, but no, they haven't. They don't. So it's amazing because the computer revolution for me is so recent. I mean, we were, for all of us, we were just kids, when these things came out. When the first home computer came out, I was like 7 years old, and here it is now, okay, we're 40 years older, and these computers are 40 years old, and they're getting rare, and they're hard to find. And, so just the idea that they're in the public somewhere that, it's moving faster than you think. The 100-year-old computer will come about pretty quick. That when that happened with automobiles, when the first 100-year-old car was, really out there, I thought, wow, we've done something. So yeah, I think that it's great. It's wonderful that the public has these available. Certainly I would love to go see this thing if I'm ever up that way.
Right, I'm going to have to go. And just before I do, I've just remembered about... so there's a Formula One podcast that started.
Don't reveal any spoilers about Belgium because I'm still watching it.
No, that's cool. But this is Liberty Media. Have started putting out
one of the cars.
Official, yeah. One of their own podcasts, and they're basically they're almost a bit like the quality of our interviews, but with various people. And you're not just like current drivers. I mean, I think they started off with Lewis Hamilton, but then it's gone quite deep. It's been sort of Robert Kubica. We've had Gerhard Berger most recently, Christian Horner, and like some really interesting stuff. The before the most recent one, whatever that makes it, was Jacques Villeneuve. What was quite interesting was, they were sort of like, so what do you like to do in your spare time? And he's like, oh yeah, I really like vintage computing. And he was like, what do you mean? And it's like, what do you mean? Like, do you collect, keep all your old laptops or something? He's like, no, like computers from the 70s. I'm just really into it, and I love how the games were. I can't remember what the quote is, but it's something like the games were good despite the hardware, whereas now the games are good despite of the bad programming, because they've got enough power to brute force through them. And he's he was well into oh god, what was it? Can't remember which MMO it was, but it was one of the sort of the more esoteric MMOs, and he sort of says how he used when they were going around in the truck to races, he made sure got them to install internet in there so that he could go raiding while he was in his downtime in the evenings and things and all sorts of shit. So really good series that they've started doing, and it's Jacques Villeneuve. I used to think he was a bit of a prick, but turns out he's maybe one of us. So maybe we could convince him to come along to something at some point. Be quite good fun.
Yeah,
or even get him on the show, right?
Yeah.
The Motorsport Magazine podcast is a good one because they don't just cover F1, they cover Le Mans and stuff like that, and particularly some of the older generations of drivers and things. Get some really good stories out of them, about before it was so, media savvy and media exposed, drivers smoking in the pit lane and that kind of stuff, and the womanizing they get up to, that kind of stuff. So that's a good one to listen to as well.
Because what was I think it was a Gerhard Berger one, and they asked him, what would you have been any better if you weren't partying all the time and things like that. It's like, nah, probably not. Yeah. But who knows? I don't know. Too late now.
Yeah.
He's Berger sounds like a real sound guy.
Yeah.
But then the Horner one's really good because it was the day. It was sort of the morning after Ricardo had told him that he's leaving. And then, that morning had announced officially that he was going to Renault. And so, it was just he'd been putting up with people ringing him all day and things like that. And there's Jerry Halliwell in the background being answering the phone and things. And then, and they're saying, would you take this driver? What's going on? Why do you think he's left? And he's just like, I don't know. He's a fucking idiot. I wouldn't have fucking left. I don't know what he's doing. We were basically prepared to pay him as much as we wanted. He wanted, and he's just decided to go somewhere else. I guess he doesn't want to be under Max's shadow. And then they were kind of like, so Alonso's left McLaren. Would you take Alonso? And he's like, I think he's burnt too many bridges in the paddock. I think he's a bit too outspoken these days.
Yeah.
It's like, definitely.
The Simon Butler of racing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So got one here from Spinal called The World's First Computer Program. Good morning, afternoon, everybody. Just read a short article about Ada Lovelace, who in 1842 wrote the world's first computer program. I assume 100 years or so before the general purpose computer counts as retro. It certainly does. Here's another article about her. A book of hers recently sold for $125,000 at auction. It's quite amazing how far computing has progressed over the last 150 years, from a half-built calculator the size of a church organ to supercomputers the size of a credit card, capable of showing you what someone you don't know had for breakfast this morning. So you can go back to proper news now. Thank you, Spinal. No, actually, I mean, these articles, we'll link to them, of course, in our show notes. It's an amazing thing that, somebody thought through, and certainly, Ada Lovelace was an incredibly brilliant person, that she reasoned through math. I mean, math was, had been with us for some time at that point. And there were obvious, the newer iterations of math, the newer versions, calculus, algebra, whatever. And mathematicians were pretty much limitless because they don't have to have a practical application. The material science doesn't have to be there. They don't have to build in physical product. All they have to do is just keep cramming numbers and letters together and work it out. So they don't have the constraints that we have in the engineering world. So it totally, shows here how brilliant she was in recognizing those barriers weren't there and imagining, okay, what if there was a series of instructions that executed in sequence and whatnot. Absolutely brilliant. So if you're not familiar with Lady Byron or Ada Lovelace or any of those, Lord Babbage, certainly basically the people who are 100 years before their time, definitely check into these.
One here from me, and it is bizarre Nintendo merchandise that only obsessed collectors have. A lot of these I have never seen before. One is the Nintendo Ultra Hand, which is basically, the
grabber from, I think it was Gunpei Yoko or something that did that.
Yeah, it's the extended grabber. You move one end and the other end also moves. There's a wind-up Link character. Just scrolling down some, pick up some interesting ones. Pikachu Electronic Bank, kind of a motorized money box. The Nintendo Lite telephone. It cost $100 in the 1970s, so that's a lot of money. The device transmitted sound waves via light, making it radio-free walkie-talkie, although you still needed to be plugged in. Just scrolling down a bit here. Nintendo Rob, of course, Rob the Robot. Super Mario Brothers movie toys. These are characters from the Super Mario Brothers movie. And an interesting one here, Super Mario Brothers shower head. It's does what it says on the tin. It is a shower head that has Mario and Luigi on it, and it has built-in scald protection. Can't be hurting those kids. So, final one I'll mention is the Game Boy Pocket Sonar, which plugs into your Game Boy, and you take it fishing with you, and it claims to be a sonar cartridge.
I remember that.
Detects fish underwater.
It was like a fish finder.
Yeah. Had a mini game for when the fish weren't biting, but yeah, it detects fish underwater. Wow.
I remember. Now, the thing is, I honestly don't remember if it was ever produced or not or what, but I certainly remember seeing like that, in like Popular Science or something, video game, to detect fish and, that kind of thing. So, got one here from Mr. Random Dave. and it's a link to a Kickstarter called Byte Driver. So, we all know about vector graphics, right? When you don't have the computational power to render full raster graphics and all, you draw a line between 2 points. You draw a line between a couple of points, and then you change the spacing between those lines, and you create movement in 2D or 3D that is not possible to do, with vector type with raster type graphics. So basically, you're reducing incredibly complex calculations down to a few simple ones. So it lets the older CPUs be able to, present graphics that have pan, tilt, zoom, scaling, and all that. So it's pretty much a racing game. It draws some mountains off in the distance. It gives you a couple of lines to give a sensation of distance and scale. The lines get closer together as it goes off to the horizon. You've got various instruments laid over it, and that's about it. It's a racing game. You run around and you try and get energy and weapons and deal with the vehicles around you. So pretty much you get, for $25, you get the whole shooting well, $40 is everything. 25 gets you pretty much the same. And then on down to like $10 for the game and some development builds. And then for $5 you get the basic game. Obviously it runs on Steam and other platforms. So yeah, I mean, I think I'd rather have the actual vector hardware, than that. But you know what? If people like it, I'm all for it.
Yep, two here actually from Glenn Minette. I guess he felt the first one didn't get through when we were having email issues, but it did. Hey guys, looks like the next pinball being released by Stern is going to be Deadpool. They teased it in one of their videos. He says, also Stern recently got the rights to Godzilla, as Charlie from Spooky Pinball spoke about in his recent podcast. Yes, he did. I listened to that. He wasn't best pleased about it, about how they went about it as well. So I know he phoned, I think it was George Gomez, who basically said to him, well, business is business. And they were pretty rough on Charlie. But you can hear about his side of it in the Spooky Pinball podcast. And Glenn says, I think I accused him of being a Kiwi. He said he's an Aussie, not a Kiwi. Well, I knew he was from down there somewhere, the other side of the world somewhere.
Well, what's funny is I remember that, and it didn't strike any alarm bells with me at all, because now, the New Zealand's they call the Kiwis, but I'm sure they have Kiwis in Australia too, don't they?
They have Kiwi birds, but people from New Zealand are referred to as Kiwis. And
it was regional enough that it gave me no alarms. I thought, okay, well,
yeah, they all talk funny.
Yeah, pseudo British.
One here.
So I've got one here from. Go ahead.
Okay, one here from James Easton. Called Dark Tower. Hey guys, this is super cool news. The classic high-tech board game Dark Tower is coming back in 2020. From Polygon, this is the statement. Restoration Games made waves when it launched a Kickstarter campaign to reinvent and relaunch the classic and visually stunning board game Fireball Island. Today, the company announced it's hoping to do the same thing for Milton Bradley's Dark Tower, with a Kickstarter campaign that's launching in 2019. Wow, giving us a bit of notice. The game Return to Dark Tower is scheduled to ship in 2020. I must confess it's not a game I have any knowledge of. Scott?
No. Drawing a big blank here.
But it's obviously big news in the board game world, which James is in, and apparently much deeper than we are.
Hold on. Dark Tower.
Yes.
Okay, fuck. You know what, dude? I'm sorry. For whatever reason, I thought you had moved on to the next one. I was like, I don't remember that. No. Yeah, so Dark Tower, man, that's a biggie in the board game world. Those can go for hundreds. They have some serious reliability problems. But you can fix them, just a real neat game. I mean, I don't know if I'd spend that much money for one, because who am I ever going to play it with? It would literally be just another boxed item I put on my shelf to have, and I think I've done that quite a few times. Yeah. I mean, and James, he's certainly plugged into the board game world very tightly. I think like you were asking me earlier, would I rather have the original or the repro? I think in this case, I think I'd love to have an original, just because.
Mm-hmm.
So, got one here from the random one, and it says, clever 3D print turns thumbstick into a steering wheel. And it certainly does that. It basically snaps onto the Xbox controller, and it gives you a little steering wheel, and it's a rack and pinion. So the pinion on the steering wheel moves the rack back and forth, which moves your analog joystick left and right. So it gives you a little steering wheel. So not convinced of the utility, but I'm certainly impressed by the cleverness of it all.
Yeah, I did look at that one. Interesting device. Well, we had 3/4 size arcade cabs earlier. Now we've got quarter size ones. This is one sent in by Andrew, Captain Arcade. And it is an official Pac-Man quarter size arcade cabinet for £149.99. And it says, experience Pac-Man how it was meant to be played on an arcade machine. This is an official, fully playable, accurate quarter scale replica of the original Pac-Man arcade for you to play or display in your home for the most authentic experience of the classic arcade game available on the market. I guess it's not quite as authentic as the original, which you could get on the market, just not the new market, I guess. But yeah, a quarter size cab. That's pretty smart.
Yeah, like I said, there's so many of these on the market now. I mean, in terms of, the 3/4, the quarter, and even now these little tiny, like the keychain ones, I'm kind of liking it, So, let's see here. Got one here from Chris Leithco, loading floppy disk games on a cell phone. And I saw this thing on YouTube, and there's a link to the article here. And it says if you support USB on the go, which I don't even know what that is, so I'm taking it Apple's not going to support it. You can use a USB floppy drive on your phone, and then DOSBox to load games. Why? I don't know. Why not? Exactly. Why not?
Okay, I had one here. Remind myself what it is. It is Beyond the Borders, and it's out now from Microsite Publishing, if I remind myself what it is. The Atari ST and the Creative People Volume 2 is released. The history of the Atari demo scene and its professional efforts is narrated in detail and extensively illustrated on another 432 pages. So this is a follow-up to Volume 1, I guess. And it covers 1991 to 1993 with demo classics, features, demo parties, and a huge interview section consisting of 40 of the most demanding artists and programmers. So where is this available? It's available at the Microsite store for €41.90 plus shipping. I didn't pick up the first one, and in fact it flew completely under my radar, the first one. But that's no bad thing.
So, damn it. I just lost my place. We did Monster Bash, didn't we? Yes.
We did?
We did start. Okay. Looks like we have not done the Oregon Trail from Sean Stevenson.
We haven't.
All right. Let's see. View unsafe images. I'm all about that. Oh, this is great. There's this really screwed up whack format thing with this one column, and it says, view unsafe images. Normally when you do that, things suddenly snap into format, right?
Yeah.
It got worse.
Can you
So
unview
all I
them?
can tell you is there's a new Oregon Trail board game coming out from Target. Apparently, Target is one of our chain stores here, like just a retail, kind of like Asda, in the UK. It's just a generic retail store. And for some reason, they've been getting all the Oregon Trail products, the card game, the electronic handheld, everything. So I guess Target is the home of Oregon Trail from now on.
You pick one up?
Oh, the board game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to, right? I mean, I think it's required. I got the handheld. I got the card game. Yeah, I can't imagine not getting the board game. So, yeah, probably so.
Yeah. Just whizzing through some here, most of which we seem to have done. Unless I've deleted some and it's just going through the same one. We did.
No, I think there's just one more here from Sean Stevenson. Modern Nintendo controllers on a C64. Not sure I see the point, but it's an interesting project. So this is off of Hackaday, which always has some good stuff. And a guy builds a board. It plugs into the. I think this is pretty cool. So the board plugs into the two 9-pin controllers, and then gives you two USB ports. The USB port is where you plug in the wireless receiver for the Nintendo controller, and now you're playing Nintendo controllers on the C64. The beauty is, though, being that that's USB, I'm gonna guess it would probably work with just about anything. Neat board, neat execution. Why not? I kind of like it.
Yeah. There's one here from Alan Hedgedus, and it is yet another kind of RetroPie clone. It's a console. Let's see what he says about it. Another multi-emulation box from Retro Al. It's called the Sumo Sys, and they've not even tried to disguise the fact that it's a Pi, because the case simply exposes all the ports that the Pi has. It's just simply a case for the Pi and an SD card image, and they are charging you for the privilege. Let me see, I had to click the order now button to find the price, which I've just done now. I'm guessing it's from Canada because it's free shipping for all Canadian orders until tomorrow. It's $149.99 in Canadian dollars. So what's that in real money?
I guess close to US dollars, similar.
Yeah. So in that, you get the gaming system, which is a Pi, as I've said, a power adapter with an on-off switch, 4 controllers. You get 2 SNES clones and 2 NES clones, a 32 gig Class 10 SD card, HDMI high-quality cable, Nintendo skin sheet to stick on the enclosure. Oh, so you've got to put your own labels on it. A quick start guide, a warranty card, community access, and lifetime. It doesn't say whose lifetime, but lifetime technical support. So
yeah, exactly. Who's doing text work, Gramps, but he ain't going to last long.
Yeah, you better be quick. What else have we got down there? A title that appears to be cut off.
While you're looking.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, sir.
No, go on.
All right. Let me find it again. Okay, here we go. Cool things that almost happened. And this one here is from Mr. Mike James. Awesome features that were cut out of our favorite video games. So they kind of open up with Mario 64 and the fact that Luigi wasn't in it because they ran out of room, apparently. Comic driving a kart in Mario Kart 64. Let's see what else here. NBA Jam fatalities. Let's see here. The most frustrating part of Contra doesn't have to exist. Unless you're super talented or rely on the Konami code, Contra for the NES is brutal or practically impossible to beat. I agree. Can you imagine, however, if there was a stage select mode where you can start off again where you died? Well, in Japanese versions, there is. For some reason, this feature is removed from European and Western releases, and so we were made to suffer. And it goes on from there. I mean, that's some pretty good things. Like I didn't know that the Japanese Contra had a save mode. Didn't know that.
No.
Probably because I can't read Japanese. There's one there from Mark. I'm going to leave that for him for next news, so he can cover it. And I think that leaves us with 29 game accessories worth of fortune.
Yep.
All right. This is, of course, sent in from Retro Sean, Mr. Sean Stevenson. Well, the word fortune may be pushing a little bit, but here's their list. So they open up with Castlevania, I guess, here. Oh, it's another one of those load one image per click. Paper Mario for the Nintendo 64. Didn't even know it was out on it. About $190. Nah, that's cheap as some of those things go. Yeah, okay, some of the Sega 32X games that go for $1,000, you know. The Resident Evil chainsaw, that is pretty cool. Worth $95. No. Yeah, I think fortune may have been abused here just a little bit. Hell, I remember, picking up the what do you call it? The damn mech game, Steel Battalion.
Yeah.
And thinking, okay, $120, that's a hell of a deal. And it is. I mean, it's a pretty cool gadget. But this, I could actually, if I kept scrolling through this article, I bet I would have come across the Steel Battalion set whopping in at $110. Mike, you got any last minute ones hiding there?
There's one that I can't actually see, and it's from Mark, and it's Badass GameCube intro screen, which has been blocked in my country.
Yeah, that's the one I was saying that we could let him cover next month. That way we could figure out a way to
Did you
get
do
it visible to
the
everybody.
Amiga one from Sean?
I thought we covered that one.
Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, I covered that one.
Okay. Well, we're out of news then, before he even got home from work, so he wasn't able to join us.
That's okay. The video is unavailable in my country, too.
What the hell country is it from?
Hey, but on the Isle of Corsica, they're really enjoying this.
They're loving it.
Fucking great video. I hope everybody's looking at this. Corsican fucks.
Yeah. Okay, people. Well, thank you for listening to Live News, and we'll be back next month with some of the ones we didn't do today, and a whole lot more that you've sent in to news@retrogamingroundup.com. And
all right, folks.
Nighty night, everybody.
Nighty night. Thanks for coming by, and we will see you next month.